Nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! So nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello,
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds! Nerds for Yang. I am back in Switzerland. I spent the last several weeks in the U.S., had a great time for the holidays, was in California, and then I was in Florida. Very different political environments for sure. But I just wanted to do a All right. Now you can hear me. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Woo! All right. It wouldn't be a Nerds for Yang live stream if we didn't have technical difficulties. So now that we have the mic working, hello, nerds! Nerds for Yang. All right. I am back. I am in my home base of Switzerland. I was in the U.S. for the last several weeks. I was in California, and then I was in Florida, and they are very different politically because I was not in the southern part of Florida. I was close to the northern or middle part of Florida. So I was on this this event, and I was mixing with some Floridians, and the topic of guns came up, and there are definitely some hardcore gun lovers in Florida. I will just say that. But the good news is by the end of that event, a bunch of the people I was talking to were not in the Yang Gang, but they definitely became Yang curious. And I think they're going to switch over. They describe themselves as not Trump supporters, but very frustrated with the Democratic Party. And I said, you know, I've got just the guy for you. And what else? They were also complaining about losing jobs to automation. And also one of them was a high school teacher. And he said that, you know, we're overprescribing college. And so I was like, oh, have you heard of this guy, Andrew Yang? And they were like, no. So number one is like, wow, you're in Florida. Hadn't heard of Andrew Yang. That's not a dig on them. It's a dig on how we as a movement have a lot of work to do. And then secondly, once I kind of went into it a little bit more, I think, you know, maybe they were being polite, but I think they asked me for links to the Joe Rogan podcast. So if they click on that link, you know, once you go Joe Rogan, you don't go back. And they like Joe Rogan, I guess, because maybe there's some conservatives that like Rogan. So that was cool. So at any rate, let me just say hello to some of the people that joined. So first hello was from Ethan Sang. So, he says yellow nerds. That too. Estillo was said right on time. Let's see. Oh, what? ZZ topic? Niners win? No. Niners will not win the Super Bowl. And I'll tell you why. because the Niners are going to have to play the Seahawks again in a couple of games. And you know that the Niners barely won the last game with the Seahawks. So, any rate, then a bunch of people telling me that we were muted. Okay. All right. I think I've got through. So, I wanted to go over some quick things. I've been very active on Twitter. If you guys are not on, I've got an Hola Nerds, which, as you guys know, some of our best videos are now in Spanish audio, and they say, Hola Nerds, Nerds con Young. So that's the Spanish that I know. Yes, Jacob Peterson, he knows where it's at. You know, the Hawks. Whoa, what are you talking about, the Hawks? True that. Yeah, let's just call both games were really close. So I wanted to go over some of the stuff I've been sharing on Twitter, and then we maybe take some audience topics. And oh my God, there's all the Seahawks talk. Obviously, well, we've got this guy, Homer. I think his name's Homer. He's like our fourth guy, but he's been doing pretty well. And of course, you have beast mode. All right, we can't spend this whole live stream about football because not everybody loves football. And I respect that, because earlier in my life, I never watched football until the last like 5 years. So if you are on Twitter, I am on Twitter at Nerds for Yang. You can see it in the top right corner of the screen. That's my alias. But I want to show some things that I've been sharing on Twitter through the live stream, just to kind of give a little more color. So why don't we just jump right in to the first chart, which is all about fundraising momentum. Yes, Travis Homer. And we all love, that's true. Hiromi says, we all love Andrew Yang. And we also know that Andrew Yang is like the Russell Wilson of 2020. Okay, that's enough about football. I know you guys some of you are trying to goad me into it, but I know that not everybody loves it. So here, let me show you something. Here. I have a chart that I put together that I think is very interesting. And it shows the fundraising activity for the top candidates, second, third, and fourth quarter. And what you'll notice is, okay, Biden, he had kind of a very difficult third quarter, this red bar. You see, like, he announces, raises a lot of money, then actually has what in startup parlance they call a down round, which is generally not a good thing. You don't want to raise less than you did in the last round, because it shows that investors are not bullish and you're losing momentum. But he did barely break his second quarter record, which is kind of hard, kind of confusing, because his first quarter was in the second quarter of the year. At any rate, his third quarter, this yellow line, did barely break over the blue line. I would not be surprised if he had to really work hard to break over that. Probably had to lean on some donors and maybe do some extra events, because if he had another down round, it would have been terrible. But give credit to him. In the fourth quarter, he did raise over 20 million. Sanders, I mean, you got to give that guy credit, man. That guy is a fundraising machine. And so he's had increasing quarters. Every successive quarter has been bigger than the last one. And every successive quarter, the growth in absolute dollars has been bigger than the last one, at least just eyeballing it. I don't have the exact numbers here, and you got Warren, who looks like she may have peaked in the third calendar quarter of 2019. And this most recent quarter, the fourth quarter, she did beat her first quarter, her second calendar quarter earnings. Let's just, for the rest of this stream, let's refer to each of these quarters as the first, second, and third. They're not the calendar quarter, but they're the quarter of reporting. The first quarter that was reported is the blue one, second one is the red, and then third is the yellow. So her third quarter of reporting was actually less than the second quarter that she reported. So her most recent quarter was weaker than the previous quarter and a little bit higher than the first quarter she reported. So this is not a great sign. If this were a startup, you would be concerned. You would be very concerned. And then you've got Buttigieg, who had a great start, then had a little bit of a softening, but did come through in the fourth quarter. Sorry, in the third reporting quarter. Is still less than his first reporting quarter. So a slight down round, but roughly the same, more like a flat round, you would call it, versus the first quarter he reported, and up from the previous quarter. So, you know, Buttigieg, I think the wine cave has delivered for him. Now you look over here, look at this guy. Look at Andrew Yang, man. He barely raised looks like less than 5 million in the first quarter he reported, then almost 10 million the second quarter he reported, and now close to 17 million in the most recent quarter. Certainly the biggest jump in terms of a percentage increase quarter over quarter. So basically he had a like 70% jump. I don't think anybody else here. Actually, no, not a 70%. I think he went from 10 to 16.5. So like a 65% jump. I don't think anybody else here had that great of a percentage increase, and his dollar increase looked like it was bigger than Warren's. Bigger than Buttigieg, certainly bigger than Warren, who had a negative dollar increase, and comparable, maybe a little less than Biden and Sanders. So very strong dollar increase, biggest percentage increase. So what's interesting about this is how it feeds into the next thing that I want to show you. But let me just check the comments in case I missed anything. If there's any... Okay, yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to show you. So you've got this in your mind that we raised almost 17 million, 65% more than the last quarter. So biggest percentage increase. Lovely up round every round, not like these other guys that have an up round, down round, up round again, right? But let me show you something else, which is a little concerning, which I know everybody here has been talking about, but we got to acknowledge that oh, come on, man. Where is that thing? Is it this one? Maybe it's this one. Oh yeah, here it is. Check this out. So I made this slide. I am not good with memes, but I can put together a PowerPoint slide. So this slide tries to explain the Democratic National Committee's debate qualification criteria. And it's basically a timeline. And so what you see here is in December 19th, that was the most recent Democratic debate. And that was a 3-hour officially approved, sanctioned, DNC, like deep dive on all of the candidates. And there were 7 candidates there. Yang was one of 7, the only person of color. And then you have here on the right side, January 15th, which is the next Democratic debate. Another 3 hours, officially sanctioned, deep dive into all of the candidates where voters can really see who's who. And in order to qualify for the January 15th debate, the DNC requires that you have 4 polls at 5% or more by January 10th. So the question is, between the last debate and this final day of qualification, how many polls were conducted in early states? In Iowa, there have been 0, at least as of this morning, January 4th. In New Hampshire, there have been 0. In Nevada, 0. South Carolina, 0. So here's the question. If you are a upstart candidate that isn't part of the Beltway and doesn't have national name recognition for the last, several years, or in some cases, several decades, And if you're not a darling of the mainstream media and you're not getting wall-to-wall coverage or disproportionate coverage, how the hell are you supposed to qualify if there are no freaking polls being taken since your last debate performance? So like, if you crushed the last debate, up until today, there have been no polls. So like, there's no way to show that you have more than 5% support in these early states. And some people will say, well, no, two things, Tom, you're forgetting. Number one, there have been national polls since then. There have been a handful of national polls, but you can expect a outside the Beltway candidate who isn't already a household name to perform well in national polls so early in the election process, literally before even Iowa has a chance to make its decision. So using national polls as a debate qualifier is basically a test of name recognition. And if the DNC's policy is, well, whoever has national name recognition should qualify for our debates, then we're basically saying we don't want citizens who want to do and serve the country, who aren't already in DC or aren't, hosts of reality TV shows or, professional athletes or music stars to run for president. Like, that's bullshit. Like, we should not rely on national polls so early in the process. Like, literally, we don't even have the first primary or caucus yet. So you could argue then some other people will say, well, oh, Tom, you're forgetting. And I think the DNC has made this argument that there have been many polls that have been conducted, over the last few months. And that's true. But again, if you are a campaign that's growing, where your name recognition is growing and people are starting to really gravitate towards you, looking at polls from before the last debate seems like you're kind of grading someone on their test performance when they were, in third grade, and now they're in fifth grade and they're trying to go to junior high. Like, you should base the decision on whether they should go to junior high on their fifth grade report cards, not on their third grade report cards. So here you have a case where Yang kicked ass at the last debate. He got some good media coverage. He's going to get some good media coverage from this fundraising news, hopefully. And there have been no polls. So, and here's the problem. We don't have that much more time. Right now it is January 4th. We have, 6 days, maybe closer to 5.5, to have 4 polls where we're over 5%. And because of the statistical variability in poll results, like, even if he really is at 5%, he may not show up as over 5% in all 4 of the polls. So you really want to have 6 or 7 polls so that we have our best chance of qualifying based on the criteria that's been selected. So I know some people have said, well, hey, Tom, you're getting really worked up about this. Like, the DNC has encouraged more of the news organizations to run more polls. Encourage is one thing. You should just say, hey, we require, because let's assume positive intent. Let's just say the DNC, when they set these criteria many, many, many months ago, they assumed there were going to be many, many polls in between the debates. It turns out that for whatever reason, the media organizations have not released as many polls as expected. And therefore, we are going to adjust our qualification criteria. And we are maybe say we're going to need this many donors. We're going to up the donor requirement. Or if we have the current donor requirement, but if you have 20% more, 30% more than the minimum, it will count as what we would have required for the polls. Or you could say, hey, we're going to commission our own polls. And as long as you have more than 5% in, in our own polls that we're going to conduct as the DNC in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, then that will be fine. So my point is, this whole debate thing is really concerning to me, partly because some people say, well, hey, look, we're not going anywhere. If we're not on the next debate, like, what's the big deal? We're in this for the long haul. That's true. We're not going to drop out. That is for darn sure. Not after raising damn near 17 million and given the strength of this movement. However, the reality is that when you're on that debate stage, let me ask you this, like, do you think the last debate raised Yang's profile? Do you think it enhanced people's opinion of him? Do you think it affected the fact that he raised 17 million? I think it did. I think in the last debate, he raised like $1 million in 24 hours or close to it, or something like that. So right after the debate. So the problem with these debates is they become these king-making events where if you're included, you get talked about, not just obviously at the debate for 3 hours, and you're on stage, and you'll get 20 minutes of really quality talking time. But you also get talked about in the post-debate summary. You get in the spin room with all the journalists who write their debate wrap-up stories. You get mentioned on the nightly news. You get mentioned on all the cable networks. You get all the social media activity. You get all the clips from the debate. I mean, that presence on the debate is worth probably tens of millions of dollars. The other thing that happens is, especially for Yang, if he's not on that stage, his biggest problem is people don't take him seriously, right? So if he's also not on the stage, it just reinforces like the so-called top tier candidates are these 4 usual suspects. And people will be like, oh yeah, is he really serious? He's not even at the debates. The third thing is, so you got the media coverage, you have positioning as a serious candidate, you have fundraising, and then that affects his ability to deploy those funds for canvassing and for new offices and ads, which would then increase his debate, his polling support, and it becomes this kind of snowball. And the reverse is also true. It becomes a vicious circle. If you're not in the debate, I mean, look, think about all the people that didn't make the debate in the past. Like, nobody's talking about Castro anymore. Obviously, he dropped out recently or yesterday, whenever. But nobody's really talking about Booker that much. And, Gabbard is kind of faded away. And if you compare interest in Yang to those candidates, part of it was that Yang showed up and he was at the debate. So, so that's my rant about this debate criteria. And I think what we need to do is we could be optimistic, because some people think, and I think Yang was saying there's some new polls coming out. So hopefully we get 4 of them. But I tell you, if only 4 polls are conducted and we get like 3 out of the 4 and we're like 5%, 5%, 3%, or 6%, 5%, 3%, 2%, like I think that's going to be some bullshit, because in the previous debates, you had to have qualified for 2 polls or 3 polls, but there were multiple. You had multiple bites at the apple. And as you remember from the last debate, we needed multiple. So if he is not included in the January debate, I kind of feel like we as the Yang Gang need to make a big deal out of it. I don't think we should take it lying down. Oh, Andrew Graham is saying we need 3 polls, Tom. Okay, so maybe that's true, but right now we have none. Actually, let's take a look at the exact criteria, because every time I talk about it, I get a little confused. Hold on a second. Share screen, Chrome here, and let's go to New York Times debate qualifiers. So you need one of these 2 requirements met. You need 2 polls at 7%. That's not going to happen. I mean, maybe it will, but that's very hard for us to hit 70%, or 4 at 5%. So I'm reading this as 4. I suppose maybe if you get 1 at one of these, did we get one of those already? Maybe, yeah, maybe one of them. Oh, then we need 3 more of these. Okay, could be. So maybe we do need 3. And if we look here, we see I see your point, Andrew. Or who was making that comment before? It was none of that. It was Andrew. Hold on. So we need 3 more, which we don't have yet. And you see, we've met the donor threshold. Oh, Klobuchar's in. Bloomberg, I don't think he's going to make it because I don't think he's going to get the donors. And then you've got Booker, who's made the donor threshold. No polls yet. Tulsi hasn't even met the donor threshold, so I think she's going to. Ooh, old Steyer might be make it on there. He's already has 2 polls. So there you go. So in summary, we need 3 more. But the problem is that if we go back to, what was that one? Let's go to Twitter. If we go back to the fact that there have been no new polls since the last debate, that's kind of BS. Where was that one? This chart really hurts my feelings. And makes me wonder, like, how the heck do you have a debate on the 19th, expect candidates to bring their A game, and not do any polls between that date and at least today? Now, maybe there's going to be a raft of polls being announced in the next few hours. Let's hope so. And if we need 3, as Andrew pointed out, I would hope there's going to be at least 5 more being released, because then we'd have a shot of hitting 3. Anyway, so now the next thing I want to talk about. So we talked about the polling stuff. We talked about the fundraising. Oh, I wanted to show this interesting Twitter poll that I did about the just kind of like foreign policy. So I know people don't really care about foreign policy lately. Maybe that'll change given the stuff with Iran. But in case you didn't know, while I'm here, let me also remind you that if you wanted to brush up on your Yang foreign policy stuff, there's actually a Nerds for Yang video with Andrew. If I go to playlist, and if you see, might be in this one. Well, just go to YouTube and search for Yang Doctrine. And you see, hopefully it'll be one of their first results, but it's by my channel. It's basically me interviewing Andrew and asking him about his foreign policy views. So check that out if you haven't. And basically, he goes into detail about he goes into his what he officially calls the Yang Doctrine. And the Yang Doctrine is, do you guys want to just watch it with me? It's just a few minutes. Say in the chat if you want to watch it with me, or if you want to just watch it yourself later. We can do it later for the Yang Doctrine stuff. All right, Genuine Eye says yes. All right, so we'll do a quick one. It's a short video. I'm going to share audio. Okay, so here's me asking him about foreign policy, and then I'll skip to his answer.
Wow. So we've just come up with a Yang Doctrine, which is the test to see whether we would intervene militarily in a foreign theater. And so the test is, does this meet a vital national interest of the United States or avert a humanitarian disaster? Is there a clear timeline for the commitment? And are our allies willing to engage with us and help? And if you say yes to those 3 things, then it's something that I would be very open to military intervention. For the most part,
Okay. So that, I think, is a lot of people don't know about the Yang Doctrine. And so just wanted to let you guys know that there is one, and that it's actually super clear. Has to be a major threat to the United States, or a humanitarian catastrophe. That's the first requirement. Then the second requirement is there has to be a clear timeline to get out. And the third criteria is there needs to be allied support. It can't just be like us going in it alone. And so I think that's fantastic. I totally agree with that. Now, but what I was originally wanted to tell you guys about was this foreign policy poll kind of I took. And let me pull that up. And I basically asked people, hey, who do you think would be the worst person to deal with the current foreign policy kind of mess that we're about to inherit? And what's interesting is that either people didn't read the question correctly, which frankly means I didn't write the question well. I'm not a pollster, because it's an inverted question. It's like, who do you think would be the worst to clean up the mess that we'll inherit in 2021? And I didn't list Yang as an option, not because I'm biased, but because like anybody who reads my tweets is most likely pro Yang. And secondly, Twitter only allowed me to list 4 options for their polling feature. And so I wanted to list the 4 kind of usual suspects. And either people didn't read it correctly, or they really don't think Buttigieg has the right stuff to be commander-in-chief in an international crisis. And that people think Warren and Sanders sounds like would be okay. I thought Biden would have done the best, meaning the least people would have said he's the worst. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, hopefully people think more about foreign policy, because I know that Buttigieg, obviously, hats off to him for serving in the military and being deployed to Afghanistan. Like, he put a lot on the line doing that, and you got to respect that. I don't know that that necessarily means you are qualified to be president and to lead our foreign policy. I mean, it certainly gives him a very valuable perspective, and I'm sure he grew a lot from that service. But I also think you want someone that has strong character, integrity, but also is very dispassionate, doesn't get emotional, has good judgment, basically like the opposite of Trump. Trump is very emotional, does not like to read or look at data. And, I don't know. I'll just say, I don't think he puts the interest of the country ahead of his. I think he thinks that they're kind of like the same. Whereas I think Yang, on the other hand, would not be emotional. Like, he does not come across as someone who loses his temper, which would be good if you got your finger on the button. The second one is he does feel very evidence and data driven and logical, which you need in these complex times that we live in. And third is he also comes across as someone who exercises good judgment and has good integrity as well. That I think I could see him, maybe this is a litmus test. I could see Yang making decisions as commander-in-chief that are not in his best interests, but are in the best interests of the country. And I could not see a lot of other candidates doing that. Certainly, I don't think Trump does things that, I don't think he ever does things that are not in his interests. And I could argue, and I don't want to upset a lot of people, but I could argue that I don't know about Buttigieg. Like, if Buttigieg were in his first term and he really wanted to be a 2-term president, and he had to make a decision that would harm his chances for re-election, but that was the right call for the United States, for the country, I don't know. that's one of those tests. But I do feel like Yang would make the right call. I'm sure that Sanders, I think, would put the country first ahead of his own interests. Warren, I think she would want to put the country first, but she might conflate her interests with the country's interests, like almost unconsciously. And then Biden would for sure, I think, do what he thinks is best for the country. I think the concern with Biden is just, would he have the right judgment, and would what he thinks is the right thing for the country really be the right thing for the country? Anyhow, that's Yang foreign policy. Now, someone was asking about Ohio. I have not done enough research into the Ohio thing, so I'm going to reserve commentary on that. From what I understand, I think I was reading that we're having some ballot access challenges there. Frankly, I'm most concerned. Honestly, I think getting on the ballot, if we became the nominee, I guess maybe this is on the ballot for the Super Tuesday primary, which then would matter greatly. But let me look into it. Right now, I'm most concerned about getting excluded from the debate and having a poor showing in Iowa. But anyway, that's that. So I think those were the top topics I wanted to hit with you all. And before we wrap up, maybe what I can do is just take some, should we do it? 538 did a blog post about some cool charts they did. So let's do it. Let's look at some of their quick charts, because they did a summary of some of their cool charts. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of them were kind of interesting. So let's see. This is a chart showing in the year of the administration, how many people left one of the cabinet positions. You see Bill Clinton had a very tough second year with 6 leaving, but Trump is definitely number 1 in terms of his losses in his second year, 8, and then actually had also 3 in his first year, so 11 by the second year. And I guess we'll see. Actually, his third year, let's see, his third year is, I think we're still in the middle of it, aren't we? Yeah, we're still in the middle of his third year. Are we? No, this chart was produced on January 8th of 2019. So that's an incomplete. I don't have the latest, but certainly for his second year, a lot of turnover. But when you look at other people's turnover, it happens later in the term, but it's not like he had 8 and nobody else had any turnover. I mean, most people seem to have turnover after they get reelected. Unless you're Jimmy Carter, where you have a really bad third year, or Bill Clinton when you have a bad second year. This is a cool chart. Now, this is like this whole blog post is a look back. So this was done, they don't have the date when this was produced, but this is obviously back when you had Gillibrand running. So this is probably early, and it shows how people had appeal to different groups. So blacks, millennials, the left, party loyalists, Hispanics, and Asians. And you see what's interesting is that Harris had a lot of interest from a broad range. You see Booker has a pretty broad range of interest. Oh, this is back in the day when I guess nobody took Yang seriously, because he wasn't even on this chart. And this was freaking, they picked 10 candidates and they didn't pick him. They picked Sherrod Brown, Julian Castro, Gillibrand, Beto, no Yang. But what's interesting is that based on this chart, you would have predicted that Harris would have still been around. And you would have assumed that Biden would be struggling, since he has only support with party loyalists and blacks mostly. And you would have assumed Klobuchar would be even more worse off. So that goes to show you, and you would have assumed Gillibrand has nice even support from all groups. So this is a good example of how data can be really powerful, but it's nothing is certain. And certainly when you look at this kind of data for who appeals to whom, early in the race, it has mixed predictive value. Let's see. That one's not that interesting. This is about the Russia organization investigation. This is about Michael Cohen. That one's not that interesting. Abortion access. All right. This is about religious affiliation. Not a huge shocker there that the Democratic Party has less people who identify as religiously affiliated. What's this one about? The census, the Twitter primary. Oh, this is another interesting chart. This was done in the middle of the year between May 18th and May 15th, 2019. How many of you see Andrew Yang on this chart? Thanks, 538. Looks like 538 did this chart, included Gillibrand, Klobuchar, freaking Williamson. Is it my eyes or is Yang not on this freaking list? What the hell? This was in the middle of the year. This is just a few months ago. How in the hell? Oh, God. Well, thanks, 538. This shows the movement of candidates from May to August. And what you see here is this bottom row here is about Democrats that have any opinion of you. And here is the favorability. And what you want is you want to be moving to the up and to the right. You want to have increase in people having an opinion of you and then increase in favorability. And you see Yang has a nice movement here going from only 30% knowing who he is to more than half, and net favorability going from 15 to low 20s. But you see a lot of other candidates with much higher favorability and higher awareness. But we've outlasted Beto and Harris. So this goes to show you that's why fundraising is so important, because we need to have enough resources to outlast. I think those were the most interesting. This is about how the primaries, not a lot of black voters in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada for that matter. South Carolina obviously comes stronger. De Blasio, yeah, nobody cares about him anymore. Yeah, I think that's it. Then mostly about impeachment. So with that said, I think what I'm going to do is ask you all if there are topics that we haven't covered or questions. Go ahead and type those in now. And then while we're waiting for those comments and questions to come in, what I'm going to do is give a little bit of a quick thank you to some of our supporters. So as many of you know, we now offer channel memberships. And I just wanted to give a shout out to some of the people that have been helping us out. So the first person is Kristen Slevin, who is an executive vice president level, the highest level of support. Basically, when you become a member, not only it's nice that I do these shout outs, but more importantly, I use the money and then I do stuff like get videos professionally dubbed into Spanish. I also, recently, let me show you something that I did with some of the member support. I bought some software that allowed me to do this cool explainer video, which I'm going to give you a little taste of. And hopefully you all can check it out and share it out. This will also go on the YouTube channel on Monday, but I put it on Twitter, a short version on Twitter over yesterday. But let me share with audio so you can see how cool it is. Chrome, share audio, boom, boom.
So the big trap we're in right now is that as these technologies take off, the public will see very little in the way of new tax gains from it. Because if you look at these big tech companies, Amazon's trick is to say didn't make any money this quarter, no taxes necessary. Google's trick is to say it all went through Ireland, nothing to see here. And so even as these companies and the new technologies soak up more and more value and more work, the public is going to go into increasing distress. So what we need to do is we need to join every other industrialized country in the world and pass a value-added tax, which would give the public a slice of every Amazon transaction, every Google search. And because our economy is so vast now, at a value-added tax at even half the European level would generate about 800 billion. Now, the second source of money is that right now we...
So you guys can feel free to check out that video, which is on my Twitter account. It's also posted on the Facebook Nerds for Yang page, and it's going to go on the YouTube channel on Monday. The YouTube channel is actually going to be slightly improved because I got feedback that the early versions were a little too fast and it was hard to read. So just be advised that that's coming. And I'm having a little bit, speaking of, so I was going to give shout outs to the members. But my point was that because we have members now who are financially supporting the channel, I was able to purchase the software to make those little explainer videos. And I'll be doing more of those as the election and the campaign goes on, now that I have that new tool. And then also, as some of you know, I have 2 Andrew Yang interviews that are now professionally dubbed in Spanish audio, and there's Spanish versions of them. You can find them on my YouTube channel. They've each had over 1,000 views. So I'm thinking we're reaching Hispanic voters for whom Spanish is their first language that way. And then the third, Secure the Yang panel interview with Paget, Kai, and Aaron, and me, and Andrew. That's currently now being professionally dubbed into Spanish as well. And so if you ever wanted to know what Paget and Kai and Aaron sound like in Spanish, you're going to hear professional voice actors perform, basically dub over their audio. So now let me also give a next thanks to our vice presidents. Current level vice presidents. So Fat Lamb, Bat for Yang, JM, Sap, Emily, Kingsley, VLAM, Lock, Win. So thank you all. And then we have our hardcore members. So basically, executive vice president is $99 a month contribution. This vice president, I think, is 10, and then this is $5, and these are $2. So now we're going to the hardcore. I'll start from the bottom because it's from the order that they joined. Tybee, Ming, Mike, Chad, XP, Felix, L, Bogart, James, Gene, Adrian, David. And then finally, we have our most popular, the verified nerd level. And the first person, Sydney, was the first person who became a member of any level. Sydney, TY, Chris, John, Lisa, Brian, Sugar, Yes, Lee, Don, Mr. Lai, Brandon, Albert, Arez, and Peter. So thank you guys for sponsoring. And then what happens is when you comment in live chat or on videos, then you get a special icon. And then even I think you get a cool like little emoticons. If you do :NFY, I think. Does that work? Oh, maybe it doesn't work here. Let me try it somewhere else. Hold on. :NFY. Yeah, if you do :NFY, watch this. I do this. Boom. See? So that's an emoticon. That's Andrew doing some kind of thing. And then here's the Andrew saying hello. :NFY. Then there's just some other ones that little charts and whatever. Any rate, so thank you to all those members. And now let's take some questions and then we'll wrap up. So let me go and take a look at any recent questions if there are any. Oh, it doesn't look like you guys have that many questions. Ooh. Mirko Gambini is saying Sanders and Yang share the same voters, Yang is getting slammed by progressive YouTube channels over his healthcare plan and VAT tax. They make valid points. I would love for Yang to go on the Young Turks. Yeah, I agree. He is getting slammed by a lot of progressives about these things. And what I would say on that topic is that when it comes to healthcare, I think that Yang has a much more holistic plan, focusing not just on who pays, but how people are paid, preventive care, more technology in healthcare delivery, domestic production of generic drugs, international imports of drugs, and also talking about stuff like end-of-life care. So I kind of feel like I prefer Yang's very detailed, thoughtful, multi-pronged solution to a complex problem. I will say, if we want to keep it real, because this channel, we have to keep it real, I do think he should be clearer about Medicare access and a public option. I'm hopeful that he will talk more about that and be more specific. So I think some of the grief that he's getting about healthcare could be avoided. I also know that a lot of people will say, hey, Tom, were you like, a full-on public option like that will never get passed in the Senate, da, da, da. Yeah, maybe, but this is a Democratic primary. People want to know, so you should tell them. And then with respect to VAT, I think the biggest criticism I've heard is that, it's regressive, that when because people's purchases are a larger percentage of their total income if they're poor, then the VAT kind of disproportionately affects them. And I think there are two answers to that. One is, I believe Yang is willing to exclude some necessities from VAT, like milk and diapers and basics, things like that. But the other thing is like, well, yeah, but you're also getting $1,000 a month, which is as progressive as it gets, because $1,000 a month to a poor person is a huge difference, whereas it's a very small difference to someone who's very wealthy. Dino was asking, what software? So it's called Doodly. It works pretty good. It's kind of it's a little rough around the edges, but I'm glad, that I think that video came out well, and I've hit a few bugs. I'm working with their support team on it, but overall it's working pretty good. The other software that, basically any ad money I get and all the member money I use for this software that we're using now, which is StreamYard. And I also use it for the Adobe Creative Suite for the video editing subscription. And then I also use the money for the Libsyn podcast hosting. So any of you guys who listen to podcasts, most of the popular episodes are available via podcast now. And then I also bought a license for some licensed sound effects, which I'm going to be using in those explainer videos. So that's that. Let's see if there's any more questions. Isn't it regressive to immigrants, though? Xiao Xin Lu says, isn't it regressive to immigrants? The VAT, well, yeah, because immigrants, if they're not citizens, will not be receiving the freedom dividend. But if you're an immigrant and you are a naturalized citizen, then you would benefit from the $1,000 a month. So unless you're buying, over $100,000 of stuff every month, then the freedom dividend makes up for the VAT. Let's see. Any other questions? No, I think we hit most of the things that you guys wanted to talk about. So with that, Tevin says, hey, doesn't it cause inflation? So if you guys remember from Econ 101, which is a long time ago for me, but one of the things I do remember is the professor saying the simple definition for inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. So the thing about the UBI is we're not printing money. We're taking money from the VAT and from other sources. And then we are basically redistributing it to the citizens. So we're not creating more dollar bills. We're just taking dollars out of the economy through the normal transactions. So that's one nuance. The other thing is, like, the good news about all of this technology is you do get more productivity and efficiency. And so if you look at the last 10, 20 years, we haven't had much inflation at all, other than healthcare and land prices. So the prices of stuff you buy will not likely go up just because people have more money in their pockets. As an example, you know, a lot of people get their Christmas bonus during the holiday season. You don't see retailers like raising prices during that period. If anything, it's the opposite. It's possible. Like, nobody's done UBI at this scale before. But there are two reasons why you would expect inflation not to be a huge issue. One is that you're not introducing more money. It's not like in some countries where they have hyperinflation, it's because the government is literally printing money to pay off bills or to, you know, kind of try and stimulate the economy. That's not what the UBI, that's not what the Freedom Dividend is. Freedom Dividend is funded by VAT, by people opting out of other government programs that they would have gotten the equivalent amount of money, and by savings. So I think that is it. Yes. John put it very, very concisely. Oh, Fred, Fred the Felon just had a super chat, which is like our third ever. So thank you, Fred. So Fred's talking about his super PAC, Truckers for Yang. So if you donate to Truckers for Yang, they're going to use that money and wrap these huge trailer trucks that are, you know, driving all around. And obviously Fred is, I think they're also planning other activities like grassroots activities and organizing stuff and events. And so they're working hard. And I know Fred, I don't know, we've not met, we've done video interviews together, but I'm familiar with Fred's work, and he's a stand-up guy and he's a crucial part of the movement. So if he's involved, I think it's a great cause. And I've donated to the super PAC myself, and I encourage all of you to as well. So thanks, Fred, for, oh, dude, we got another super from Ken Chu. The fourth donor. I love it. I love it. Every time you donate, let me tell you guys, you might be wondering, like, well, why are we giving money to this guy who lives in Switzerland? So I can tell you for 1,000% certainty that the monthly expenses for this channel way outweigh any money I get from the ads and the super chat. Because I think the last Secure the Yang video, because they had to hire like 4 voice actors, it's going to be $19 a minute. And I'm just going to do the first 35 minutes. I couldn't afford to do all 50 minutes. So that's going to be like $600 right there. And then the previous ones were like $500. So just so you know, like, don't worry. If I ever raise more money from this channel than the expenses of the channel, I'll let you guys know. And I'll probably say, hey, don't feel obligated, you know, downgrade your membership, or don't feel obligated to super chat. But we're unfortunately, we're not there yet. In the meantime, not to worry, because I will still do everything I'm doing now. I might do, like, I can do more if we had more resources and budget for the channel, because Mrs. Nerds for Yang started noticing some of the credit card charges for the various software and technology for this thing. So I told her that I'm going to be responsible. What? Robert, my man, 2088, a lucky number. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate all the support. I love it. Love it. Yeah. So if you guys haven't seen, since we're talking for a minute, let me show you. I know some of you have already seen it, so I'm not going to do it for a long time, but let me just show you what I'm talking about with some of the Spanish stuff, because not only I want you to see it, but I also want you to share it if you know any Spanish speaking voters for whom Spanish is their first language. So you just go to the Nerds for Yang channel and you go to playlists, and there's a playlist here called Nerds con Andrew Yang Espanol. And if you go there, you'll see
de razones. Y puedes verlo con el hecho de que ahora tenemos un rubro que sigue creciendo, donde gastamos el doble en atención médica que otros países para obtener peores resultados. Y es porque muchas de las cosas en las que gastamos mucho dinero
look, they
no
even
mejoran la calidad de
localize the
vida.
visuals.
Si hay un lugar en el que la mano invisible no funcionará, el número uno sería
Now, before I come up with this, I want to do the beginning, which is my favorite part.
Hola, nerds.
And then this is the other one.
Hola, nerds. Este es un episodio muy especial. Como muchos saben, iniciamos el reto Nerds con Yang. Y su campaña nos dijo, oigan, pequeño canal de YouTube, si pueden recaudar $10,000, quizá podamos hacer que Andrew aparezca en el show. Así que en 10 días recaudamos más de $10,000. 15, pero eso no importa. Y adivinen a quién tengo en el programa. Vamos a empezar con Andrew NF Yang, el único, el nerd en jefe.
Oh, shit. I never get tired of watching that. Hola, nerds. Oh, shit. We had another super chat. What happened? Tuli the Medio. Thanks for what you do. Let me highlight that one. Thank you, Tulio. You've been one of our. Oh, is that Tulio's mom? I'm not sure, but I think Tulio's been a Nerds for Yang watcher for a long time. So thank you, and appreciate you guys for doing that. So anyway, that was what I was showing. Like, that's where the money goes to. That Spanish stuff is super cool. And Fred. Dude, Fred, you're the man. I don't want you spending any more money because I want you to put all your money to the Truckers for Yang. But I appreciate the support. Ooh, Harry Chu, not pro me spending money. Well, I think let me tell you guys something. Why I respectfully disagree with Harry. Let me tell you guys something. Guess how many views the Nerds for Yang videos have produced this year for 2019? Over 1 million. Can you believe that? Let me just show you. Let me show you since I have access to this data. You know, we're not going to have a Nerds for Yang video without a lot of charts. All right, so let's go to dashboard and we'll go to analytics. And we're going to go to reach. So this is the number of views. And now if we say lifetime, look at that, 1.1 million views. This is when we started way back in March 11th. No, March 10th. We had 96 views. And and then we kind of broke through, you know, in the middle of the year with the Yang videos, with the Yang interviews. This was the Yang videos. This was my first one where I was pissed about him not getting enough time. Actually, let's take a little trip down memory lane since it's still the end of the year kind of reflection mood. Let me go back. Go here, and you guys, let's take a look at the first ever Nerds for Yang video, which was pretty weak sauce. There's now been 129 Nerds for Yang videos, but if we go to the very beginning, here we go, the first one ever. Go here. 9-minute video, March 10th. That's Ryan. He never shows up in videos since then. All right, we won't watch the whole video. But that was a fun trip down memory lane. But anyway, my point to Harry was that these videos now have over. Oh, that had no audio. Are you serious? No. Did you guys get video? Did you get audio on me showing you the first thing? Well, sorry. Oh, you couldn't see or hear the audio. What the hell? Oh, that sucks. No, I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna make that right. Hold on. I'm gonna make it right. We won't watch the whole thing, but we're gonna go here. I think I know what happened, so I'm gonna fix it. Videos. And then we're going to go to the very bottom of this list. We've done a lot of Nerds for Yang videos, folks. My fellow nerds. Jesus. Holy shite. Look at all these. All right, here's the very first Nerds for Yang video. Yo, yo, yo. It is the weekend, Sunday morning. And we just had breakfast. Hope you guys can see this one. We decided to make a video about why we are really interested in learning more and probably supporting the Andrew Yang candidacy for president. Most people have never heard of him. I certainly hadn't heard of him until just recently when he's been on some podcasts. But I really like him so far. And is that the like? Is that a sign for like? Maybe that's a sign for like. I don't know. We're doing some improv as we do this video. So, all right. So that was a little sampler from the original Nerds for Yang channel. And the good news is I still like him and I still support him. So I appreciate everything that he's doing. And I have to tell you, if you asked me when I did that video back in March, Xiaoxian says, where was the Hello Nerds? Yeah, at that time, we didn't have the Hello Nerds. I don't know when we started that, but that was super early. But the best thing was when I started that channel, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere. I thought it was kind of a lark, but I'm so happy that we've gotten this far, freaking top 5 or 6. That's so cool. So yeah, someone else was asking me about an interesting question about standardized tests. Yeah, I know. I looked. It's been a long year for me. It's been a long year. I produced a lot of content and work has been tough. Let's see. But I think someone was asking what my view was on standardized testing. And I thought it was an interesting question because I have kids and my kids just went through some standardized testing because we're in the middle of relocation. and some of the schools that we're looking at require that. And whoa, Yu Qian just hooked us up with a super chat. Thank you, Yu. This will help us expand our content creation, and hopefully, most directly, it goes to the Unilingo, which is a company that I use to do Spanish audio. So if any of you guys are creators and want to do Spanish audio, you can use Unilingo. They charged me, I think, somewhere between $17 and $19 a minute, because it's not captions, it's like voice actors. So anyway, thank you, Ms. Chen. Really appreciate it. So yeah, for the testing, someone asked me about testing. Basically, here's let me just share a story with you guys about testing. Yes, Unilingo. I put a link to it in the Spanish videos in the description as well. But actually, since some people were asking, let me just give you the exact. Where is it? Videos, playlists, Espanol, and it is Unilingo. Oh, Dominic and Bernice want to do it for free. Yeah. Hey, if you guys want to do it for free, I would love that. I would just need you to give me the Spanish audio, and then you'd have to do it so it's timed perfectly with the English audio, but it's totally possible. So email me if anybody wants to volunteer, because I only have Unilingo do my most popular videos because I can't afford, we don't have enough money to do them for everything. So I'll give you my email, tom@nerdsforyang.com. That's my email address if you want to email me and try it out. Basically, I would just need the MP3 file, but you'd have to I think the way you do it is you'd want to have earbuds in and listen to it in English, or maybe transcribe it first and then record it in Spanish. So it's not easy, but if you want to give it a shot, I'd love to talk to you about it. My story about standardized tests. So here's the thing, like, my kids are pretty bright. They're not geniuses, but they're bright. And we're moving next year to back to the US. And we are probably going to go with independent schools because they have way smaller classes, and they're going to have, more enrichment and nice facilities and all this kind of thing. So number one, right out of the bat, you're like, well, gee, most of the country does not have resources to do that. And it's true. And it sucks. But as a parent, I feel like I have to do what is best for the kids. And if I have the resources to give them smaller classes and more enrichment, then I should do that. But so set that aside. I mean, I'm still going to be paying tons of property taxes because this is going to be in California. So my money will definitely be going to the public schools. But I'll be paying on top of that to go to independent school. But the other thing is that they had to take these standardized tests and for admission into these schools. And what's interesting is that if they had just taken those tests without any preparation, their score would have been, let's say, X, some number. Let's say, 7 out of 10. Now, what I did, though, was then I sat down with them and helped them learn how to take tests, things like process of elimination, things like practice on reading comprehension, like knowing how to identify like the themes or the trick questions, or for the math stuff, like being comfortable with the different types of math standardized test questions, like the column A, column B, the same, less, not enough information, or just brushing up on the areas where I could identify where they were weaker. And within 2-3 months of this kind of tutoring, that I provided to them. And frankly, I also had a tutor help them. From 7 out of 10, maybe their score went to like 8 or 9 out of 10. And the kids didn't change. They're the same way they were 3 months earlier, but because we had the money and we had the time and I had the experience in standardized testing to help them, they got a huge leg up. And so my point about standardized testing is like, I worry that it's more a reflection of who has practiced taking tests. I don't think that's all of it. Obviously, if you have no academic kind of foundation, you can't just be trained to take these tests. But if you have 2 students, one that has, and they have equal kind of academic readiness, but one has a lot of test taking support, the outcomes will be very different. So my position on standardized tests is I think they're a necessary evil, but I think we also need to kind of level the playing field somehow. And because there are diminishing returns to test prep, I almost feel like test preparation should be available to all students in public schools, or they should get vouchers to go and have extra test prep classes if they want, because it's such an advantage for people who have resources. So at any rate, that is that's it for me. It's been over an hour, and I promised Mrs. Nerds for Yang that this would be a short stream. And so I will end with saying thank you to everybody who did the super chats. Those are super cool to see the support from Yu Qian and from Fred. And let me just make sure I called out everybody that I can remember. From Sophie 23, and let's see, scrolling up, Fred again, from Tulio DeMedio. So thank you to all you guys for helping out. I think there was one more, but unfortunately my chat window is not showing me who the other super chat was. You know what? That's not cool. I gotta call that. Someone that they said that they were the 4th. Let me see if I can look them up quickly in Creator Studio. Monetization, supers. Robert Lee, William Lewis, Fred the Felon, and Ken Ju. Yes, I think I got everybody. So it was Fred, Kenju, Fred, William, Robert, Tulio, Fred again, and Yu Qian. So thank you to all you guys. Hope you have a great new year. And we'll see you on Nerds for Yang live stream soon. On Monday, I'll be publishing the new explainer video where we take Andrew Yang's audio, and I use that Doodly software to create these little like whiteboard kind of visualization. And it's a 5-minute video that is basically answering the question, how can you pay for the freedom dividend? And you know how Andrew gives that really nice, concise answer, but I kind of try and visualize it, and it comes together really well. You can already see the first version on Twitter and on Facebook, on the Nerds for Yang Twitter and Facebook pages. But the improved one will be going live on YouTube, and it'll be a little bit longer. It won't be as rushed. And so check that out, and we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, nerds.